My guest today is Juniper Devecis, passionate, outside the box nutritionist, a dietitian, nutritional biochemist, and author of Vibrant, Juicy Life. After years of battling food cravings, weight struggles, and burnout, Juniper transformed her life through hypnosis, EFT, NLP, and yoga. In her book, she combines her expertise in biochemistry, nutrition, psychology, and energy work with her personal story to share an empowering step by step path to quiet food chatter, heal emotional eating, and create a more authentic life. Juniper, welcome to the podcast. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Yeah, how's it going?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I can't wait either.
I don't think we're going to be short of things to talk about. This is a massive topic. And I've actually had a guest recently on the podcast, but talking from about this topic from a different lens, um, emotional eating and body image and purging and that sort of thing.
Mm,
Whereas this one
yeah.
is really about emotional eating, and you talk about your weight gain, and that
Yes.
kind of struggle that a lot of people experience. Do you want to start
Absolutely.
by kicking us off with a bit or a lot, if you want, about your personal story and how you came to be in the work you're doing today?
Absolutely. So I struggled with weight most of my life, somewhere in my teens. It started, um, and just, really it shaped my self-worth in my teens because so much, high school is kind of a brutal time. And so it shaped this like, okay, I am never going to be good enough. So I'm checking out of my body and I will just focus on my brain. And then also this huge shaping in, I mean, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, right? So like I just had to prove myself everywhere. I worked really, really hard. And then later, when I got married, I took care of everyone. I took care of him. I took care of the kids, and like just really to the point of exhaustion. And then in hindsight, of course, I didn't really, it just felt normal, but it was a lot. I had a pretty intense job and it's pretty intense home life. Everybody had ADHD, so there was a lot of like, holding every piece in place. And I would collapse at night from exhaustion, and then I would just start eating. I'd have a little snack. Oh, okay, another snack, another snack. And I was a high level dietitian. Like my whole journey led me to become a dietitian, to get a master's degree in nutritional biochemistry, because I was looking for, okay, there must be some sort of key, some special way of eating, some special food. 20 years of work in dietary supplement research. There must be some magic pill, like searching for answers. Tried every diet that came my way, and still, was like 100 pounds overweight. And no, I mean, I would try to do intuitive eating. I would try diets. I'd be able to do them for, some period of time, a month, a couple months, and then life would start feeling really bad. And I'd be like, why am I even trying? I think this is whatever, I give up. And so then in 2018, I went to my cousin's wedding and I saw a picture of myself, and it was like my rock bottom. I'm like, wow, okay, this is pretty bad. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And someone had told me about this hypnotist. So I'm like, fine, one more thing, I'll try it. I'm finally ready. Okay. Um, so I was hypnotized, and then a couple of months later, my marriage fell apart. And so it was like this perfect storm. I really think all three pieces of the hypnosis, the fact that I knew like so much about nutrition, and because I'll explain why all those pieces were so important, and the divorce. So the divorce led me to do all this personal development work while I was hypnotized. So she was like, if you break your hypnosis, you will no longer be hypnotized. So I couldn't stop the like this the she kind of put me on a strict diet, like a fairly limited diet, and I'll tell you that because I actually think that's a key piece of it too. Um, so I actually had to feel my feelings for the first time, which I had not realized, but I had no ability to do that. It wasn't part of my, it wasn't really taught in my family. And I think most of us, right? I feel like this generation is the first generation that we're like supposed to feel our feelings, but we don't really know how. We weren't taught how. We're just allowed to feel them now. And also I really knew how to get enough nutrients because I think, our food supply is pretty low in like it's getting worse all the time and it's almost impossible. It actually is impossible to get enough nutrients just from food. And then when you put someone on a lower calorie diet, it becomes even more impossible.
Mm.
So because all the people I was hypnotized with ended up gaining their weight back and somehow I didn't. So I actually think it's the nutrition piece, which I had nailed. I just didn't nail the ability to feel feelings and give myself comfort in outside of food. And the hypnosis, which works sort of at a subconscious level on fear and like the protection. Like you are eating for a reason, right? Well, what is that? What does it bring to you on a subconscious level? And so unraveling all of those pieces it was the win for me, and I'm finding it really an amazing sort of piece together for my clients too.
Pretty full on, isn't it? I had my own teen experience, and I have talked about this in my podcast. I've talked about the fact that I was a drinker, alcohol, and
Mhm.
and I think for food and alcohol, they're both very socially acceptable. So it doesn't seem unrealistic to enjoy food or enjoy a drink. And uh, about 3.5 years ago, I stopped drinking alcohol. And very similar to your story, I realized I had a whole bunch of shit going on that I'm still unraveling. Um, and it's like, oh my God. And it's this post, um, I didn't ever have a drink and think, I need to cover up all of these feelings. Yeah,
All right. I I
it
didn't
was
think I
just
was
my normal. Well,
unhappy.
that's who I am. That's what I do. I just have a drink at night. And it wasn't
Yes.
until I stopped that I started feeling all of this discomfort and realized that at those teenage years, where you want to get on with people and it's acceptable to have a drink and you feel better when you're in those environments, when you're, a bit tipsy or completely drunk, whatever it is. Oh my God, sorry, I'm going on, but it's like
Yeah.
these stories are really similar. And on the
100%.
outside, you've got a successful career that
Right.
um, yeah, you've got the family, you've got the home, you've got the good job, um,
And
and
I
this
never
in
would have thought I was unhappy. I laughed
right,
all the time.
yeah,
It's like part of my personality. But in hindsight, like, and now that I'm so aware, like that first, so in the evening, like I have kind of a habit spot. So I like to like watch a little bit of TV at the end of the night. And when I sit on the couch and I can like, the second snack, I'm like, oh, I have a feeling. I still don't actually
okay,
have the feeling. The second snack is like, you have a feeling that you need to go and figure out what this is. And then I have to get up off of that and go and like, what is this feeling? And journal it out. Right. It's crazy. Like how I still, even now with so many tools, have to like, what is this feeling that I am
mm,
having? Because
yeah,
I never would have known, even though I ended up in the end of my marriage was on Lexapro, I still didn't piece that together that, oh, I wasn't feeling, or I was trying to avoid my feelings, right? There's two things we can do with food. We can either eat to feel better, or we can eat to stop feeling bad. And I do more of the second one. So I don't necessarily know. And what it feels like is this like urgent compulsion to eat.
Okay.
right? So that because hunger comes on kind of slowly. You can ignore hunger, all right, I'll get to that a few hours from now, whatever. But that, like, I must eat right now, that is you trying to run away from a feeling. And yeah, I actually, I'm not sure, but I don't actually have the comfort where like, oh, I want to feel happy. For me, it is like I want to. My subconscious is like, let's stop feeling anything. So
Right.
it is still a very like conscious, like, oh, I want a snack. Oh, interesting. I think I must be feeling something.
It's yeah, I notice it now because I don't drink anymore that, it's around that time where I'm making dinner for the kids, I'll now pick up my phone. Yeah. Whereas I would
Yeah,
have had a glass of wine. So it's like
right.
I've replaced it, and I kind of witness myself going, "Oh, I'm doing it again." What is it? I'm trying to fill a space
Yeah.
in
Right, because
my
those habit grooves are so deep. So, like, having the aha moment is one piece, but then
Mm,
you have to, like, actively, like, almost like I think of it like, this huge river, it's carved in stone. Like, you have to make all these new little rivers so there's more choices there,
mm,
right? Okay, what else will make me feel good? What else could I do to process the emotions? So for me, I now do a lot of exercise, like getting outside. It doesn't have to be, intense exercise, but getting out of the house and going for a walk in nature, I find really soothing. Or I do a lot of journaling too, not, but like moving my body in any way, like all these different things. Like I have a whole, many, many things that I can do that will help me
mm.
feel better, not just eating. For a long time, that's really what I had, eating. And
I think it's really interesting and also kind of reassuring for people to know that you still have these experiences, but you've learned how to navigate them and to bring your
yeah.
awareness to the experience rather than to be kind of like just blindly just following the process. Yeah, I think that's a really reassuring thing to know that it's not necessarily uh, yeah, it's bringing your awareness to it, isn't it? It's not
Right.
exactly
Right.
trying
Instead,
to get
second snack,
rid of
instead of
this
me
thing
going,
or
all right, what can I eat as a second snack that, like, will have no calories and, volumetrics will fill my belly? Because that did not work at all. Like my belly somehow never, now it's better years later, but for most of my life, I could never feel really even hunger or fullness. um, because you become dissociated from
mm,
those types of feelings when especially when you're using food for something that isn't hunger or fullness related. But now it's like, oh, I have a feeling, right? So it triggers a whole different cascade of habits.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, and finding new things. So I mean, right, what you want to do is say, okay, what is how have I self-sabotaged myself in the past? So when I look at it, right, so okay, I would stick to a diet for a couple months and then every time I would be like, wow, life feels really, really bad. Why am I even trying to stick to a healthy eating plan? So it was always like this fit of depression that would trigger me to fall off track. So now that with my older and wiser self, I can recognize, okay, so what could I do instead that would make me feel better? Do you know what I mean? Because for
Mm,
me, it was I was trying to avoid those feelings. But so look at why you have fallen off track and then say, okay, is there something else that I could help that could help me with my mood?
mm,
If that was your issue.
yeah. I wonder when you were in your teens and you said that you kind of ate emotionally and you have quite a lot of insight about this. Is it in hindsight? Is it in reflection that you see those patterns, or were you
Yeah.
consciously at the time
Not
going,
at
I
all.
feel
No,
bad about
I
myself?
was only after you took it away that I even saw that I had this struggle. Like, right, it was not at all. Like and I mean that's sort of I've struggled a lot. How do I communicate this to people? Because I thought I had a weight problem. I thought I had a genetic issue that like everyone in my family was overweight. Obviously, I must be. I know everything there is to know about nutrition because that was really high level. I know a lot about nutrition, and that was not the answer. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, then I must just be genetically like this is it. I'm stuck.
Mm.
And it was only sort of in hindsight, I realized no, I was actually sabotaging myself over and over and over again. And, instead of finding comfort, and another huge piece. So for me, like really finding, I do like a ketosis cycling. So
Uh-huh.
using ketosis, which is really a low carb diet, and our bodies have evolved to do this sort of cyclical plan. That's what our fat is saved for, to get us through the famine, but we don't have famine anymore. So it just keeps storing. And so that's what the hypnosis put me on, is more of a ketosis type plan, a low carb plan. And when you take away those foods, all the things that kind of like your brain just becomes much calmer, at least mine did. Like ketosis has been associated with a lot less inflammation and inflammation in your body. Your brain is also inflamed, which is depression and anxiety and that kind of like volatility in your emotions. So all that calmed down, right? And all those kind of like, now I didn't eat a lot of processed food, but I did eat some. And so without those, which also sort of sabotage you, right? That dopamine hit that you
Mm.
get from like some sort of, little treat. So when those were gone, everything just became a lot easier. Like it became, I was no longer sort of having my brain be hijacked in all these different ways. It just settled. Um,
So it was a combination of the,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your um, food habits were like? Because you've mentioned that you've worked in nutrition. You
Hmm.
knew all of the right things, the healthy things to be doing,
Yeah,
and yet you were struggling with overeating. And
yeah.
I think that we've been led to understand that it's eating crap that is what makes us put on weight.
Mhm.
And that if you eat healthily, you can eat as much as you want, maybe, or
So I am proof positive that that is not true, right?
okay,
Because I
right,
really did only eat healthy food. I mean,
okay,
I grew up kind of off the grid. My dad grew all our food. We were
okay,
vegetarian. So I was like, I really never. And then in college, I remember I was so excited. I got like a Hostess cupcake out of the vending machine, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be so good!" And it was horrible, actually. Like I had a sore throat for days. Like it did not. That was my one and only. Like kind of like I'm gonna have like how the other kids eat. No, it was not good. So I mean, was my diet perfect before? No, but it certainly had very, very little junk. I mean, I think most people who struggle with weight are really actually eating pretty healthy. My issue was portions because I couldn't feel fullness,
Mm,
right? So I was eating until I was stuffed because that felt satisfying to me. So I was eating all healthy food. I mean, not all healthy food, but mostly healthy food, just way too much of it.
okay. Um, how much do you think your experience was to do with overeating versus emotional um, stuff?
That's an interesting question. Um, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, but I think probably the reason that I didn't feel fullness was because a lifetime of emotional eating, you know what I mean, kind of taught me that I to disconnect my hunger and
Disassociation. Yeah,
fullness.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I'm really curious about that. Like I remember being at college about when it was probably 20 years ago, and I said to someone, "Do you think that people emotionally, or and it's to create a layer around them, like as a protection, like, like,
Mhm.
and like how that emotional and physical thing kind of intersects?" And they were like,
Yeah.
"What are you talking about?" That was weird.
No, but that's the subconscious part, right? So I mean, when I because I've spent a lot of time wondering, and this was something I looked at myself a long time ago, but now that I have a lot of healing and I've done a lot of subconscious work, like absolutely my body was like, oh, if you gain weight, no one will look at you and now you are safer, right? So I
Mm,
see like my daughter kind of covers herself up in a flannel shirt. I did
mm.
that with food. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, right, these are ways to protect ourselves from various things, right? I was protecting myself from feeling, yes, but also, right, that's just one. There's all these pieces that you have to unravel.
Just not
And
being
I saw as
seen.
I lost weight, there was a lot more interest from men, and that was actually
Oh.
like and liking me for what I looked like, which had really never happened. Like I they used to people the men who liked me for my personality, which actually was I don't know, that was more that's better. So that was shocking. I thought the whole world got so easy when you were thin.
Now you're just being harassed by men.
I just have different problems. Come on, I thought this would solve everything.
Oh, classic. Um, what was I going to ask? Oh, I was curious about when you were at the wedding. I'm just kind of going back a little bit. When
Yeah.
you were talking about being at the wedding and you saw a photo of yourself and someone suggests and you were like, okay, it's time. How did that make you feel? Because I feel like when we're in these um,
Mhm.
positions of change, it can bring up some real kind of uncomfortable feelings. And this is something that anyone who might want to come and work with you could be at
Right.
at
Right. Like,
that
what is
point
that transformation moment? Like, this is your rock bottom, right?
because it's
Okay,
pretty
wow, things
scary,
got
isn't
to
it?
change. I mean, when I saw the picture, I was like, wow. And I have it now. It's a few places because, like, I'm like, here it was. This is the picture because because I'm getting hijacked. I I'm trying to think. Do I just remember thinking, wow, that picture is really, really awful.
Mm,
But I don't have, I wish that I had like some, it was embarrassing, certainly. And especially as a nutrition professional, right?
right.
How can I be a nutrition professional? But I mean, I'd been dealing with that my whole life. And it was in, so that I'll talk to you about that and I'll see if anything else comes up about your question. So when I counseled people early in my career, and they would look at me and see that I was heavy, and they'd be like, well, you don't have anything of value to tell me. But then when I got thin, people
Mm,
will be like, well, you can't understand. So, right, there's no winning. So you just have to be like, hey, I have, whatever, like my wisdom, and I know how to help people. So
mm,
that's a huge piece. Like the whole first chunk of my book is about stepping into our self-worth, right? Because
yeah.
we have to recognize that we have the value and we're worth prioritizing, not just all the things we do and the people we take care of, but that we get to go on that list of people we take care of.
Mm, definitely. Yeah, it the when we do make those decisions to change, like you going into that hypnosis process and knowing that this is it, were you scared? Like, I'm going to have to give up?
Yeah, I remember. So I remember because when I drove there and I had like this bowl of cherries, and I was like, this is going to be like, this is it forever. Because I knew she put
No
you on
more
like a
cherries.
ketosis program. And I'm like, this is it forever. Like, all right, we're ready. Yeah. But I was ready. You know what I mean? I think that is what it happens. There is some moment and you're like, okay, enough messing around. I'm ready now.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I think that's an important thing for people to realize as well if they are on that point at that point of change is that it's okay to feel that discomfort and that's probably actually a really good sign that you're on the right track, isn't it?
Right, because it won't feel easy. It
No.
won't feel like, hey, I'm going to keep doing the same thing because you're actually, right, you're making this, you're like, I am ready to change. And so something is going to change.
Yes. Yes. Can you tell us some of the things, some of the signs that people might be experiencing when they have a difficult relationship with food? What are some of the things that you see come up? What are some of you've kind of talked about some of the things you did or experienced?
I mean, certainly that compulsion to eat
Okay.
is not about food,
Mm.
right? And that's sort of what my message, but I honestly think all of us who struggle with food, it's not about food. I
Right.
can't imagine and anyone that I've client it's never about food. We sort of know what we're supposed to eat, so why aren't we, right? It's
Right.
not almost nobody needs more food knowledge. Um, Yeah, so that urgency to eat is absolutely a signifier. Like there's something deeper. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways of resisting. Like I've worked with people, who are like they have a lot of rebellion about it. Like, oh, society wants me to look a certain way, and I'm going to rebel against that. Okay, but like when we look deeper, who are you really getting here? So.
Mm. Yeah.
Right. And then, right. So, I mean, there's all kinds of layers of protection that we put on ourselves.
Mm. And you kind of mentioned as well that if we're tired, if we're stressed out, if we're
Oh,
um,
yeah. Right.
eating the
So for
wrong
me,
foods,
like
like you
that's a
said,
good
when you were
one. I
having
can
those
talk about
kind of,
how,
yeah, great.
yeah, how I felt. Like,
Yeah.
so I ended up having a lot of food intolerances, I think, from living in chronic stress for so long. So I had a lot of weight around my midsection, which is a sign that you have elevated cortisol, that you're like sort of living in that chronic stress. And what that does is it shuts down your metabolism really because you're preparing for fight or flight. I would wake up in the morning and my ankles were really stiff. Like I'd almost have to wiggle them back and forth for a few minutes before I could walk. Because my weak point, like I have a lot of inflammation, and even now, when I like as I've discovered that there's foods that I can't tolerate, it always shows up as like my wrists and ankles get inflamed. And I think I was moody because I think I had a lot of brain inflammation too. So I would snap at my husband, at my kids. And I think that was part of the what led to the end of my marriage is I was in a pretty unhappy place with a lot of irritability. Let me think what else. I mean, I would keep myself really busy, so I didn't have time for exercise because I think exercise is also about prioritizing yourself. Do you know what I mean? But in hindsight, when I look, I'm like, all right, so I did find time for lots of other things, and now I find time without a lot of effort, right? So I think I that was a little bit like, all right, let me deliberately stay busy because I don't want to actually deal with this.
Mm. Yeah,
But
it's
that's some
interesting.
learnings too,
Yeah,
right? Learning to
absolutely.
prioritize and let go of things. That's a huge one for women. Like I don't know, we want to, it's hard to let go of control. It's hard to delegate. It's hard to say some things aren't a priority, right? Because we feel like we're supposed to do
Yeah,
everything perfectly, but you
totally.
can't.
Totally. Yeah, it's quite an unpicking, isn't it? Because like there's not one thing that you can kind of set, there's not one specific thing that you can kind of say this was the reason for my experience, or this might be your reason for the experience. But you could even say that that stress piece or do the overdoing is a distraction from yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so my book is organized in four parts.
Okay.
So it's the first part of self-worth because like as I was sort of unraveling my journey, okay, how am I going to teach this to people? And I like teased apart, okay, what exactly were the pieces of my journey? And the very first thing was having to learn that I'm worth it. And I didn't even realize that that was something I didn't think, because I accomplish a lot. I have a good career, you know what I mean? And right, so why? But I was sort of always kind of overachieving, and that is because, right, I was trying to prove, look, I am worthy. But
Mm,
it shows up in some really, and then when that leads to burnout. And then the second part of the book is, okay, how do we let go? How do we handle overwhelm? And so once you've got a little more self-worth, then you can start looking at prioritizing. Okay, what really matters? And you should be on that list. So I allow 5 things. That's it. If you like, we can handle a 5 things. You get to redraw your list every twice a week. So, but right, we cannot do everything. And I just recently was working with someone, and she was like, but I can't give that up. And I said, but you're not giving it up. What you're
mm,
doing is making space for the things that you actually want to do, right? Because that's what we're doing with this. Like, why hold 20 things if 15 of them like are miserable? Like, let's see how we can do a little bit less on those.
mm.
So dealing with overwhelm, and that but you have to have the self-worth before you can make yourself a priority. And then nourishing yourself. So that's the food piece. And I think that's right in the whole flow, right? To self-worth and dealing with overwhelm is before food.
Right. Okay, let's go there then. Let's talk about self-worth. I mean, we've been touching on it, but like, what, where does that come from?
I mean, I know, I wish I don't know where it comes
Is
from.
it Is it something that we've picked up in our childhood?
And I
Is
mean,
it
that's
like a
some of
striving
the
for
work I do
attention?
is timeline
Okay,
healing.
okay,
Right. So, and we'll go back to like a lot of those subconscious beliefs were shaped in, like, all of them are before 7. That's when you get your whole sort of subconscious shaping. But
uh-huh.
sometimes they'll be timeline or generational. Like, so even before that, right? What was our grandmother's self-worth? And because she shaped us, right? She shaped our mothers, and our mother shaped us. So it can be a long way back. But yeah, I mean, I think, right, we would love to imagine that our parents were perfect and taking care of us perfectly, but they also were probably trying to work at jobs and put food on the table. And so,
Mm,
you know what I mean? We have like these little child lenses that are not understanding the big picture. And so that's a lot of the subconscious work, right? Okay, using your current self, let's go back and see what did that little child take away, and what actually, let's pull out a little,
mm,
what are the learnings.
yeah. So we kind of understand in stories, don't we? So we have an experience and then we create a story around that, and that story sort of
Yeah,
shapes our
right,
reality.
right.
And so,
Like, my parents were busy, and they
right,
were busy growing our food and working jobs, and I think that I took away, oh, then I better be extraordinary for them to love me, really.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I better work really hard. I better show how dazzling I was. And I just did that then going forward in every scenario.
How do we practice rewriting those stories? Is it a physical practice? Is it just a witnessing and an understanding and an acceptance of? Do we use some of the tools that you mentioned? That
I mean, so I mean, I can see if I can teach your listener. So I can, now that I've done the subconscious work, but I can go go up, you imagine your timeline, you put yourself back there in your little child self, and just say, okay, let's look. Am I really, what is this belief I'm dealing with? Okay, am I not enough? I have to prove my worth to people. That's what I would say with the belief. So then I go and I'm like, okay, when did that belief, like, let's look at myself in my childhood and see, like, where did that belief come from? And is it really true, right? Is there another way to look at this? So you could do that, like closing your eyes and kind of speaking with your subconscious. You could do that maybe in journaling and ask some questions. So I would think both of those you could get there.
mm.
Yeah.
And so that stage one is like really starting to understand what was going on and why, if you aren't
Right.
feeling worthy, or you, yeah, you've got feelings of inadequacy, that self-reflection is step one.
Yeah.
Is
I
that
think
where
maybe
you
you could even say, can I prioritize myself? How do I feel about taking like putting my health on that list of five things, right? And if
Mm.
you are like, oh wow, really? I'm only get five and I think I've got to go. Like, oh, maybe there's some work to do there. Because I've had people like that. Wait, I've got five. If I've got five, I can't. That's not. I don't fit on that list.
Interestingly, I've just recently had a guest on, and she talks about how important it is to contemplate our own death,
Mm.
because and she sort of teaches us how to write our to die list, like rather than our to do list, and how so much
Uh,
of our lives is kind of tied up with, all of these things we've got to do that are important, and then we get to our the end of our lives and realize that actually connection, relationships,
yeah, right.
self-worth,
None of
all of
those
those
things were
things.
actually important. I love that,
Yeah.
right? And that will help you figure out what should those five items be.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So, what are some of the? I mean, we've got the book. So, but you do this in your practice as well. So, what are some of the things that you can do? You talked about journaling, but you've done hypnosis. You had hypnosis to help you. Do you now use hypnosis with your
Yeah.
clients?
Yeah. So it
Okay.
was so transformational. Like I know I do a lot of sort of meditating
Yeah.
and trying that like following intuition,
Yeah.
and that's how like the whole my whole journey has been guided that way. And again, that comes from prioritizing, like making space, not having that food chatter. That's like that makes space for listening to your intuition. But oh my gosh, I totally lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
No, I was asking you about hypnosis.
Yes. Oh, so it wasn't part of the first, couple of years of working with clients, but then I was like, the hypnosis was so transformational, and then it became time. And so yeah, then that came and both NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, which is a little bit different modality, but they work really well together.
Can you talk to us a little bit about NLP,
hmm
please?
So it's basically it's neuro-linguistic programming, so using language to shape our view of the world and our behaviors. And I'm just trying to think if I can do it in a way that's really understandable, because it's a little it's kind of surprising. But like, so looking at your behavior and chunking up or chunking down, like, okay, let's let's look at the sort of comfort eating, right? And go up. Okay, that's not really a good example. I'm sorry. I'm having, well,
That's
here's
okay.
something. So when we imagine a food craving, right, and we paint a picture of it in our mind, so you close your eyes and you imagine this picture. Okay, what is this like? What does this craving for potato chips look like? And, it's big and bright and like saturated with color. And then moving that picture in your mind further away and draining the color out. And what you will realize is that after you come out, your craving has diminished. So, I mean, it's like really surprising
Okay.
work like that.
Okay.
But you
Wow.
can turn up someone's like motivation for, their for health behaviors and things like that in that
Okay.
same way.
And how important is language when we're talking about food, in how we experience it? So I think of things like, I've been bad. Oh,
Mm.
this is a little bit naughty.
Well, right. I mean, the whole work of hypnosis and NLP is really to take away that emotional charge, right? We can do these things, but that those words like there have such an emotional charge around them. So turning down the dial on that emotional charge, right? Because it's not like I'm trying to erase a behavior. I'm just
Mm,
trying to make it like this, the way that I might have felt about food, right? Very exciting. It was what brought me joy. Like, well, let's turn that down. It's just food is just food, right? Look at
yeah,
that. It becomes a
yeah,
whole different thing once food is not like my main joy and it's just food.
yeah. It's not linked to an emotion or a feeling. It's just like I need food to survive, kind of thing.
Right.
And you
It's
can
just
still
food.
enjoy it. You can still
Yeah,
really
it's
enjoy
fine.
it,
It's
right?
good. But
Yeah.
like, nah.
And there's so many good things about eating, like and connection. So,
Mhm.
people who eat together, it's a real sort of ritualistic thing, but it's a really important part of human nature as well, isn't it? So,
Absolutely, but it wouldn't, but you could get that same connection without eating, right? Like,
yeah,
so again, I
yeah,
don't want to have the emotional trust. Like, you could like, so
mm,
I really don't eat desserts now, but I will get a latte in a restaurant if I'm, at a
okay,
event,
yeah,
and I that's delicious, right? I don't need to have something sugary to end
mm,
my meal. Like,
yeah,
so just turning down that sort of the must have with food. Like, yes, you
yes, yes.
can do the social connection, but you don't need the food for social connection either.
Mm. Do you feel that so I've read some books on habit change, and one of the books I read talks about being able to moderate. She talks about people being abstainers or moderators, and some people just
Mhm.
have to abstain. That's me. And
Yeah,
some
I think
people
that's me
and
too, to
some
be
people can
honest.
moderate. Do you notice that kind of thing?
I have not, I think people think they can moderate, but I see what it looks to me like a slippery slope. I'd like to
Okay,
imagine that
yeah,
there are people who are better with moderate, but
yeah.
I'm not one of them.
No, me neither.
And that's why the ketosis works so well. So
Mm,
I do cycling, right? So I will like my pants will be tight. Okay, it's time for a little bit of self-induced like lean times, right? So then it's more of a restricted diet. So protein, unlimited protein, vegetables, and healthy fat, really.
mm.
I mean, within reason. I don't need all the cream cheese that people talk about, but like, right, our caveman
Get
ancestors
stuck
did not
into the
have cream
dairy.
cheese. So then I'll just have a lean time for a few weeks, right? Everything slims down. My body's like, okay, we went through a lean time and now I can have a little bit more moderation and I'll be there for a while until I feel like I'm slipping again, right? So back and forth. Like that's right. Our bodies, we're not actually meant to have abundance all the time. That's why it kind of hijacks our brain, right? We only in caveman times we only had like all those treats, and by treats I mean fruit.
Mm,
Really, like a few months, then they were
yeah.
used up and gone. So, like our body is primed to like look for calories, right? We love sweet
Mm,
and fat. Like, ooh, that's perfect for surviving the lean times. Um, so maybe there are magical people who are better at controlling themselves, but maybe not.
What about how does that differ, that experience, that practice that you have for, where you have some lean time to yo-yo dieting?
Hmm. Well, I think yo-yo dieting is pretty extreme,
Okay.
right? So they're doing like this extreme restriction. At no
Uh-huh.
point in my So I don't love food tracking because I think it makes you very obsessed with what
Yeah.
you're eating. So I don't want any food tracking. Like maybe for a couple weeks so you can learn like what foods are higher in carbohydrate and what foods are lower so you can understand better. But after that, no tracking because I the whole goal of this is to make you never think about food again. So, but I also like restricting, I think just backfires, right? When you are like deliberately restricting, you're going to fall off of that. And then you'll have binging. And now you're trapped in a cycle. How does mine differ? Um, I mean, that's an excellent question, but it doesn't. My mind calms down in ketosis because
Okay.
I've really gotten rid of any of those sort of triggers and inflammatory foods. And I'm not restricting, right? So
Mm.
I'm allowed unlimited amounts. And when I'm hungry, I eat.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I think because I work in the fitness industry, we see that kind of, we back in the day, we would have these 4 week challenges. And what we
Hmm.
recognized was that a lot of people would go real, hardcore,
Yes.
give up all of the things, but then 4 week, and they'd get really great results. Their
Right.
body fat percentage reduced, they looked amazing, they had loads of energy, but it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
And so then they would go back, gradually go back to their old habits. They'd start drinking alcohol again,
Right.
going out for dinner, not exercising as often, all of these things. So they would just fall back into that old ways.
Yeah.
And then they'd go, well, I'll just do the 4 week challenge again when it comes up.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
and
right. I
we're
think
like,
if
no.
if you feel like that, right? Oh, I'm so excited this is gonna end and I'm like gonna eat all of this like all the things that I then like yeah, that's the wrong like you want to find a way that all phases are totally sustainable and just feel like this is what I do, right? I'm in a little bit of a lean time right now. I'm fine now. Like it yeah, so you just have to find a place that doesn't feel like ooh, I'm excited when this ends because then I'm going to.
Yeah. And then I guess the rules as well, like having rules around it, like can be a sign
But
that, you
it
know,
needs to become a lifestyle
it's a
as opposed
lifestyle.
to a food challenge or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like what here's what I'm going to do now. Instead,
Mm.
it becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that comes with time, right? That's building these habits um,
Mm.
rather than this one intense challenge. Like you'll build these habits over a lifetime, like making sure you really do enjoy the food that you're eating and feel like you could do that for a period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess with this particular work and what we've been discussing up until this point is really those first two stages that you work with your clients on. It's not about food, it's about all of the
Yep.
emotional stuff that's attached to that
Right.
overeating, which, yeah.
Right. Because I couldn't do intuitive eating. I remember
Wow.
learning it and I was like, I could do it once or twice. And then I'd be like, no, because it was right. I had to learn to hold emotions and not be working so
Mm.
hard so that my cortisol came down and I was metabolizing things. Right. All of that comes before
Yeah.
you even get to the food. Yeah.
And you touched on previously that you're about the cortisol and belly fat. Can you give us a little bit more about that? I know it's kind of jumping back a bit, but I think this is like
No.
can you know possibly for someone who is experiencing or does feel overweight or
Yep.
heavier than they would like, if where they're carrying the fat can be an indicator of what is going on.
Hmm.
um yeah.
Yeah. So when we're in so a little bit of stress is a good thing, right? Your body's
Yep.
designed like a little bit of stress sort of keeps you motivated and gets you to, deal with a little challenge. In fact, that's like the research behind all the longevity challenges,
Mm.
like the cold plunge and things like that. But when we stay trapped in a state of stress, your body's not actually designed for that. We never had that in caveman
Mm.
times. In fact, the only long-term stress we had was starvation. So what your body does is um it shuts down metabolism because it's like, oh, we have to deal with this crisis. The crisis will be short-lived. So stop metabolizing food. That's a waste of time. We need to mobilize all energy so that we can fight this tiger. So it shuts down your metabolism and starts churning out glucose so that you can have that quick energy to fight a tiger. But when we stay in that state for months or years with our metabolism shut down, right?
Mm,
Like that means that we're constantly craving sugar because our body has said, "Hey, we're not going to deal with metabolism right now. That's a waste. Like we need to mobilize to fight this tiger." So you crave sugar kind of very frequently because telling that's where those quick acting carbohydrates are coming from. And you're hungrier because that's part of like it does all kinds of things. It constricts your blood vessels. So your blood pressure goes higher and like it has more inflammation so that because that's your immune system on like hyper alert, like we've got to deal with this crisis. So there's like all of these health um downstream effects from staying in that chronic stress for a long period of time. And one of those things is you start to gain weight around the middle.
mm, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
good to
right,
know.
so easing the stress so that we're metabolizing our food so that we can access our fat stores is a huge piece of that. So
Yeah.
how can we bring that stress coping down? How can we both change life so that's a little bit less stressful and give more stress coping skills?
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Food quality. You talked about how when well, you basically said that our food doesn't have enough goodness in it
Yeah.
anymore. This is a real this is a real kind of problem in today's
Absolutely.
society, isn't it? Because we can think
Yeah.
that we're doing the right thing, and I think this with our kids as well, like making sure they're veggies, but quite frankly, the veggies ain't got much in them
I mean,
anymore.
do that too, right? We
Yeah,
need the
they
veggies,
need the
absolutely.
fiber, but
Right. The
when
most nutritious diet you can eat, definitely keep doing that. But
it,
also, right, our food is just getting less and less nutritious. And I actually wrote my first book. So this book that I actually published is number 3. The first book was so boring and dry that no one would want to read it. But I went into like I did a ton of research on all the many reasons that our food supply just doesn't provide enough. And it's a whole lot of reasons. We fertilize the soil differently than we did. We're using things like pesticides, which destroys the microbiome, so the plants don't take up as much nutrients. We're choosing different varieties because the varieties we're choosing are more global. They used to be all these little farms with different varieties, but also to be shipped long distances.
right.
Like I could bore you to tears on all of them. There's a million reasons our food has declined. Um,
So what do we do?
it's
What do we do
what it
about that?
means is that, right, I mean, pretty dramatic decreases. The
Mm,
environment has changed. So
yeah.
that actually, because there's more carbon dioxide, it means the plants are higher in carbohydrate and lower in protein, and then they draw up less minerals. It's a whole thing. So what do we do? Well, we eat the most nutritious diet that we possibly can. So lots and lots of plant variety and protein and healthy fats. So that's I mean, these are the most nutritious foods we can. And we also really do have to supplement. That's where I have been in for years, is supplement research. So I think everybody does need to be on a multivitamin.
Yeah.
Um, no way around it.
Just like rabbit hole, because you know about these things. Supplements, are they good and bad? Are there some that kind of say that they're the
Yeah.
multivitamin, but actually
Yes.
they're synthetic and like they don't have as much as we require, or like,
So I mean, there's not. I know there's not that like I don't have a thing about synthetic versus like food derived
uh-huh,
nutrients, but the forms that they are in, particularly the mineral forms, right? So if you see, for example, magnesium oxide, a lot of multivitamins will use that, but it's the absorption is only 4%. So
uh-huh,
you're not absorbing it at all. So that's what you want to look for. You want to look for, um, citrates or glycinates. So right, I could again fall down a wormhole on this, but right, the quality and particularly of the minerals. Folate is another one. So what we've learned is that there's a lot of genetic SNPs that means folic acid is not well utilized, and actually, like a buildup of folic acid could be detrimental. So you want to look for folate, five methyl tetrahydrofolate. So I think if you avoid mineral oxides and look for folate, you will end up with a good multivitamin.
Okay, good to know. This is kind of a random question, but I was having this conversation with my husband last night, and you you may or may not have an opinion on it, but I'm wondering whether, we've got some weight loss drugs on the market at the moment that a lot of people, Ozempic is there's another one, I think, I don't know. And I was sort of saying, and Darren, my husband, said that he heard an interview with someone who was taking this and had some really great results, lost a lot of weight, but then couldn't afford it anymore, or the doctor refused to re-prescribe it, and they put the weight back on. And I said, well, is this, is it a result of the drug? Is it because it's not about the food? Like, what's your what's your take on
Yeah.
this
And I mean
whole
the drugs
thing?
are very effective. So I'm not against them. I feel like what I'm starting to see very recently is that there may be some more adverse effects that
No,
we
yeah,
that we didn't know of.
yes,
But up until and I've not seen that corroborated. So I'm still pretty pro the medications if people
okay,
are on them. What you need to be aware of is that you're losing equal parts fat and muscle.
yes,
And right, muscle has all to do about our functionality as we age.
metabolism, yeah,
So really do everything you can to maintain that muscle. Eat lots of protein and get lots of strength training so
mm,
that you are keeping as much muscle as you absolutely can. And what happens, big right, because they're expensive. And
mm.
so people do eventually likely have to get off. And because they've been having
It
they've been
suppresses
providing the
the
GLP, their
appetite,
body
doesn't it?
doesn't make it anymore.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
what? So they have a lot of hunger when they get off.
Oh,
So
wow.
you want to make sure that you've dealt with all the things that we've been talking
Yes,
about, right?
yeah,
So are you making sure that you're feeling feelings and you know how to give yourself comfort and you've got, some sort of movement habits in
mm,
place? Because movement for me, not so much about my body, although strength training is important for that, but movement has been a huge piece of how I handle my mood now. Like
yeah,
it's all right. It takes away that sort of anxiety and fear as
mm,
long as I get daily movement. It just keeps me sort of just feeling so much better that I don't need food as a crutch.
yeah.
So, but like having all of that in place. And so then, because right, I just did a 5-day fast and I was so
Oh,
amazed
wow.
with myself. Well, I used Prolon, so it wasn't,
What
but
is
like
that?
still, like, and I was like, I never could have done that years ago, right? Because like hunger would come. It was a little bit more boredom than hunger. I
Mm,
like would finish a project and be like, how about some food now? No, like you're not eating right now. Like, but like hunger did not really play a role in it. So, like, once you have so many tools in place, like, hunger is pretty mild, to be
mm,
honest. And yeah, so
yeah.
I just feel like if you have the tools in place, you could get off of it and be okay.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That's great to hear your perspective on that. We're coming to a close. We have obviously everything that we've talked about is in your book, but we haven't talked that much about your book specifically.
That's
Whoops.
totally fine.
But I think that we've got a pretty good picture of what we can expect, and the guidance that and support that you provide people to have a better relationship with food. The book's called Vibrant, Juicy Life. What does that mean for you?
No, I love that question because people are like, when I had like a booth, they were like, "What is that? Is it juice?" No, it's because I was leaning on food, and when and I remember sitting in my friend's kitchen, and she's like, "But you know what is your resistance?" And I'm like, "Well, food is kind of my main joy. If you took that away, I'd have nothing left." And after going through this journey, like life is so good now, so much better. Like I look at that woman and I was like, "Oh, you thought life was like you thought food was like so good, but like life just got so much better when food was not kind of part of it." So,
Love
yeah,
it.
it's about how much better life is when we're not leaning on food as our main comfort.
Beautiful. Juniper, I think we could probably keep going, but we might have to save it for another time. Um, Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really insightful conversation, really important work that you're doing, and yeah, just such a positive impact that you're having. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and insights with us. Really
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much. Thank you.